See, now
I
I
want to
feel
know what you guys think about this.
Alright, Bob, we'll tell you what we think about it.
I think I don't even want to click it.
I gotta click it now.
No, it's a link to an article about the first laboratory grown human brain.
Stuff of Frankenstein nightmares. Imagine yourself as a functioning brain kept in a laboratory jar. White-coated scientists are torturing you by
You
feeding you
don't
an
need to
endless
read it
stream
out
of
loud,
terrifying images and sensations into your nervous system.
Brock, please don't read it out.
That's terrifying, though. Even if you cry out for help, no one could legally come to your rescue. This is some pretty next-level shit, actually.
Of fucking course it has to be at OSU. God damn it.
That's
Fucking
where I
Ohio.
live.
Thoughts, opinions, worries.
I honestly don't
pretty
know how I
fucked
feel
up.
about it. Yeah, I mean,
there's the argument that's not like of an actual developing human being, but if they can scientifically prove that it develops a conscience, then I would entirely say that's an inhumane, very, very bad thing.
yeah, but then would it be humane to end its life? Do you think?
Yes.
If it's in pain, I would think it would be.
If you're essentially torturing it at that point.
Yeah, but I mean...
Although, if they were to prove it was
That's to
conscious
say-
and not in pain...
Yeah, but just to say that it's in pain and
That's
ending its
gray
life,
area.
although it being human consciousness, would you still be able to say that you would justify killing it? Because, I mean, I think I would liken that to, like, imagine you're going through, like, really bad depression and someone killed you because you were going through a really tough time in your life and you just
it's
wanted
different.
to die. But how
Because
is
this
it
is
different?
literally
Because
just a brain.
yeah, but it's a developing human consciousness. At that point, although
You can't argue this. I'm saying I personally would be okay with killing it.
I'm
It's
just
not an
asking
argument.
questions. I'm not arguing. I'm just asking questions. Like, would you consider it to be human? It's a human consciousness. It's a human
I'd consider
brain
it to be
capable of
part of
human
the human.
thoughts. So would you be able to? You would say, but really, honestly, you are your brain. You know, without your brain, you don't have thoughts. If you could make your body just work without a brain, then you wouldn't be you. You wouldn't have a personality. You wouldn't have a consciousness. Like, isn't that really?
I don't think it could honestly develop its own personality because it doesn't have any social interactions with anything else.
Yeah.
It only knows whatever they feed it in. The only way for something to actually have a personality is if it's actually interacted with some type of stimulus that's other than itself.
Yeah, but it's being subjected to stimuli, just a very odd set of stimuli, such as scientists poking and prodding it all the time.
And then again, it's not actually like learning any type of language or anything like that. Like it's not actually being taught anything. It's just
Well, I mean, it has no effective means of communication, but I don't think that dehumanizes it.
is it
you know?
really human now?
I mean, it is by all means the part that is the part of the human body that your consciousness comes from. That's your personality, your quirks, your ideas, your thoughts, like literally everything that is you that people know you for. People know your body, but without a brain, we'd have no concept of body image. You know what I mean? Though we'd have no concept because of these things because we'd have no way to conceptualize anything. There'd be no way to even have a concept without your brain. I mean, that's the part of the body that is you. So to say, if you took away the body from the brain and the brain was still able to function and have its normal functions, I would argue that it is in some weird way, definitely in a very weird way, but I would say it is human.
I'd say it's human, but it has no ability to decide for itself. And it sounds cruel, but at that point, you're torturing something that
understand.
never had the option
Yeah.
to know not torture.
it never had the option to be alive, but nobody really has the option to be. Nobody asks to be born. That sounds pretty like brooding and depressing, but like honestly, like nobody asks to be born. No one asks to be brought into existence.
Hey, mama, shove me out your
Maybe-
vagina.
Maybe it can be considered some form of subhuman.
I mean, yeah, it would probably, honestly, since it doesn't have tactile functions, it doesn't have any sort of, like, it doesn't have any extracranial functions, it's really just a brain. It doesn't really experience the world in the same way that
And
a
then
regular
what if
human
we were
would.
to start developing these brains as some type of biological computer? Would that really be saying that a computer could be a person as well?
At that point, if we advance that far, then I'd say yes, because, I mean, it has the identifying qualities of a human being. It has its brains, it has its thoughts, it has its feelings. And, I mean, at this point, what's stopping them from going on to making a
It wouldn't
computer
really
run
have
off a human
feelings.
brain?
In order to have feelings, you would need chemicals induced into the brain in order for you to be
Well,
subjected to feelings.
See, my point is, I'm just assuming that these chemicals, that these things are all part of it in order to keep the brain functional. I mean,
No, I don't think that's really needed. I think one of the main components of a brain that's really needed, I guess, would be oxygen and sugar or glucose.
so,
That's about it.
so what you're
To
saying
actually
is that, yeah, so what you're saying is that we might be able to create an entirely reptilian brain functioning human, like a human that doesn't function with a mammalian, like a sympathetic brain. It only functions off like its parasympathetic nervous system. Like it only knows problem solving, deducing, and reaction to stimuli. It doesn't.
Fuck.
Right. Would it actually be considered human at that point?
Debates.
Bob, I thought you were about to drop some like dumb shit and just record our reaction to it, but this has actually took a very meaningful turn.
No, like is it really human at that point? If it is a brain that was grown in a jar for the purpose of being a artificial brain, or not necessarily artificial, but a grown brain, it's not necessarily human just because it uses human cells.
I feel like a lot of
No.
this could also be said upon the lines of like an abortion discussion.
No, that's a whole different.
I feel like a lot of
ballpark.
the same points and ideas still apply, though.
No,
But the-
because I mean, I'll just leave it at this because kind of digressing from what the original discussion was. Is that
It was just an observation.
a fetus is a growing batch of cells that is turning into a human being, whereas this was artificially created to be artificially created. Like its purpose was to be artificially created.
Was
When a
the
baby is
brain?
conceived? Its purpose is just growing as
Yeah,
a baby.
I understand what you're
That's just
saying. That makes
nature.
sense. But then
This is
this makes
completely
me,
artificial.
this makes me curious on the fact: was the brain grown from like synthetic, like non-brain
It was from
materials,
human
or was
stem
it was
cells.
a human? So it was a
It was
stem cell
adult
brain.
stem cell.
Adult stem cells don't exist, do they?
They were turned into. They took adult skin cells and turned them into stem cells.
Like, I'm not gonna like call you out on it because I could be wrong, but I'm fairly certain that stem cells just
No, stem cells
they
are
turn into
they're-
other shit.
Yeah. They're stem cells created from adult cells. That's what I'm trying to say.
All right.
So here's the big question: is this ethical? And of course, ethical does go in the underlines of whether or not people's own perceptions of what
Yeah,
ethical is.
I
But
think that
In
begs
general,
the
would
question.
this,
Yeah.
would this be considered ethical?
I don't know. That's a really tough question because I honestly think it begs the question: is just having a child ethical? Is bringing life into the world in general, is that ethical?
But this is artificially made. That's a whole different ballpark. This is a
Yeah.
human brain artificially created.
I
in a
understand,
lab.
but to say that you brought
Just-
this into the world to study its experiences, to allow it to experience, isn't that almost somewhat pretty much the same as having a child? I mean, yeah, you don't have a child because you're a scientist and you want to learn about child development. I mean, you could. I mean, nothing's really stopping you, but most people don't. But, like,
I think this would be ethical if at least pushing the bar as to what we consider ethical, so we can actually branch out to more different things. Because a lot of times,
So we can define what ethical is.
Exactly. Because a lot of the times, whenever science, introduces something new, everyone's like kind of like scared of it. They don't know exactly if it's okay, but then sometimes it ends up being bad, and sometimes it actually ends up being really good.
So we can really discover a new frontier of technology and decide whether or not it's something that we would feel worthwhile emotionally and financially putting any effort into.
Right.
So if anything, I think it's a very interesting experiment. I think it's a very interesting learning experience. In terms of the ethics of it, I don't think I can speak. I can't call it honestly. I don't know how I feel about it at the moment. I'd need more time to think about it.
What I first said when I think it's borderline ethical, unethical until they can 100% say if it's developed a conscience.
Yeah,
once it becomes sentient, that puts it on the unethical side. But if they were to go with these experiments for a very prolonged amount of time and it was not to develop sentience, I'd say it would be a gray area, but still kind of ethical.
So really what we approached is not like what Brock brought up earlier as to whether or not a fetus is a living thing or whatever, but what we actually have approached is the same type of dilemma that happens like in sci-fi when a robot develops personality or self. Is that
I was going to bring that up too. Exactly. It's a very sci-fi situation. Like, is it like... It really kind of blurs the lines at a certain point between what can be and cannot be considered human. Alright, two things that I want to point out in this article. Something that kind of changes it for me is that they announced that they have successfully grown a near exact replica of a 5-week-old fetus's brain. At this point, can we even say that it would be sentient? Because, I mean, not much study has been done on it, but do we really know what a 5-week-old fetus thinks? Does it think? Is it capable?
The problem.
We're talking more down the line.
It's not you, Brock, but you keep bringing up this whole fetus dilemma, and a fetus is...
Well, I mean, that's what this is. In the article, they replicated a 5-week-old fetus's brain.
I understand that, but usually, in most cases, a fetus is something created from two people naturally because they wanted to have a child.
I understand. But I'm not bringing up the ethics or anything. I'm just saying, like, just on a strictly academically, I guess you'd say, I'm just calling into question, like, would we even need to worry at this point about it, like, gaining sentience? Like, maybe not this one, but later on the line.
Okay. You're wondering if it has the brain capacity for sentience.
I'm just wondering, like, I don't know, like, a 5-week-old fetus, what would it really think? What consciousness would it develop? What personality would it have? What kind of effect could that have?
I guess at this point we'd have to keep waiting for it to grow.
If they could perfect a way to identify sentience, they could then start a new, or essentially recreate the experiment, and then just keep testing that same method until it reacts, and then that could provide a basis for like abortions. It could be like, when does a fetus become sentient? Then they could mold laws around when a sentience is achieved. Then, like the abortion is a no-go.
I think it's also. Or go ahead.
No, go ahead. It's fine. I wasn't going to make a good point.
I think it's also very interesting to note that. Let's see. It even has its own spinal cord and beginnings of an eye.
I was just reading that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's intense.
That's creepy, I think.
I mean, more or less, with the stem cells, they're essentially just creating a human in a jar.
I think this goes a lot...
the stem cells are still trying to develop a whole human body.
I think I can see this going into... If we can get this technology down, could we... I think one of the major points, I think, in just the potential in this, is at a certain point, could we replicate using specific human beings' tissue to replicate as close as possible a specific human being's consciousness. Could we at some point use DNA? Because, I mean, we're getting pretty close to being able to clone dinosaurs through chicken DNA, you know what I mean? Like, I think at this point, do we ask, like, could we at some point achieve the possibility of being able to replicate a specific person's a specific person's conscience? Like, we could take DNA from, like, a corpse. I'm just going to use a random example. This isn't something just like, maybe say we could just take Abraham Lincoln's remains and use that genetics to replicate the conscious of someone who died long ago.
I don't think that's how consciousness works, bro.
I don't. I'm saying consciousness as close as possible. I understand what you're saying, and I know it's a long shot. It's really just like
sure, we could clone his body, but we wouldn't have his brain. I don't think, not his thought process or anything. I mean, I guess it ended up being like the old MTV show Clone High, but that's about it.
I think it's interesting because they cloned a 5-week-old fetus's brain, so there's really no way to know what kind of connection it would have to the cells of its donor.
Yeah, that would bring an interesting point. Imagine if we could, I don't know, somehow get DNA of Einstein or someone that actually has like a really high brain capacity, and then
Nagus Lorek.
Then we make a clone of their brain, except in very healthy conditions. Imagine what's possible with that. Would all of humanity be okay with that? Wow, that's... Ooh.
Like, yeah, would we be ready for it? Short answer, probably not. Honestly.
I mean, we're not talking about like some kind of end of world scenario or anything like that, but
just
like how Liam said it, if it ends up thinking for itself, then might have a bit of an issue.
I mean, it could. I mean, it really depends, because I think if you kept it isolated, specific individuals in specific isolated situations, with no exposure to any outward situation other than the situation they're in, tend to be content with it, like a Stockholm syndrome almost. Like if this brain were to just grow into maturity and gain sentience, without knowing that people think it's a moral dilemma, without just knowing culture of people and everything else, without knowing how people feel about it, without knowing of other conditions other than its own surroundings, I don't think it would grow spiteful of its situation. But if they were to expose the brain to culture and film and media and other ways of existence other than its own, I think it would, either one of two things. It would get really angry and just like fucking take over the Pentagon and launch nukes or whatever. Or it would just get really depressed. Because, it can't experience those things. It might be like, what's that Robin Williams, Bicentennial Man with Robin Williams, where he's like the cyborg, that's like the family cyborg, but, he is...
No, he's a family android that slowly becomes human because of advances in science.
We are not them.
We are not them. See, I'm reading now that they plan to continue the brain until it resembles that of a 12-week-old fetus, which does give the possibility of it maturing and growing and learning.
This could be early steps of...
It's 50% amazing,
this could be
50%
extremely
terrifying.
early steps of advanced clone procedures.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, cloning without the maternal figure.
Like, can you imagine?
Without a surrogate.
Literally test tube babies.
Yeah.
Like, imagine a future where an artificial brain that has no previous memories or anything like that. Like, imagine a brain that's a blank slate. And
imagine
I don't
what we
know,
could do with that.
I'm going to use this term loosely, consciousness. Your consciousness eventually can maybe get stored into a secondary brain. So in case you ever have something like an aneurysm or stroke or something like that, new brain.
Exactly.
But the thing is, I mean, sure, you bring up the whole idea, well, what about the soul and all that other stuff? That's science for another day. But still, I mean, you could actually really have another you walking around.
Which is pretty weird.
Not just like the whole physical clone thing like we've been doing with like sheeps and stuff like that. Like sure, that's a physical like embodiment of them, but they have their own thoughts and stuff. If you could actually clone your own brain with a process similar to this and then somehow put your own memories into it as well, you can have a direct clone of you in mind as well, not just in body.
Then maybe finally someone might understand me.
Brock, you'll finally find the perfect lover.
Yeah.
Brains.
Maybe we can make a clone of my dad that'll stick around this time.
No.
You'll have to raise your dad.
That'd be
You'll have to
weird.
raise your dad at a very young age.
That's a very
You're gonna
Rick
be
and
your
Morty
dad's dad.
situation. I can see that being on a Rick and Morty episode.
Fucking go to like, go somewhere. Like they would take him to school, and he's like, "Oh, who's this?" He's like, "Oh, it's my dad."
Yeah, Morty has to fucking raise Jerry.
Sorry, I had to go pick up my dad from soccer practice.
No,
Can he not drive? He's like, no, he's like 9 years old.
You'll just leave him and be like, how does it feel?
Yeah.
I wonder.
This conversation's getting too crazy.
We're not
for me,
them,
man.
RJ.
We are not them. No, like
I wonder
think
if you would be able to fool the brain. It doesn't even have to be your brain. It could be just any brain, and like say you're force feeding it like old family videos, like look at all the fun you had with your parents, and then they just show a picture of you, like just some random person who's unconscious who they want you to replace, and like they're knocked out, and they're like you were almost dead, but we saved you and kept you alive for all these years, and we're just now
Force feed
awakening
them.
you, and then they put you in that body that they've also cloned. And then you're just in that mind. Your brain's dumb. It's like it's been force fed, and that brain's dumb. It's been force fed that it's that person. They look just like that person.
Oh, I get what you're saying. You're like you're putting false memories into it and making it think it's something else.
Yeah.
I guess that would be an ethical issue now, wouldn't it?
I think there's actually there's a show on Netflix that's aiming to be, or it's a BBC show, but it's aiming to be kind of like
I watch quite a few BBC shows.
what is it? Twilight Zone. It's aiming to be like a modern Twilight Zone. It's called Black Mirror.
I've heard of that.
They had an episode actually where this girl, her boyfriend, or I think it was her husband, was killed in a car crash, and she actually like ordered this kind of like a sludge you put in the bathtub, and you put like a strand of hair from the person that died.
Like a primordial ooze.
And I mean, this is a bit more sci-fi than this whole idea, but essentially created this this person that looked exactly like the husband / boyfriend, but had none of the memories. So I guess if they were to force feed it the memories, it could get some semblance of becoming that person. There would always be like the quirks of things that, all the things that weren't ever recorded, but you could like, actually one of the things I think they did was you could do any social media, like this was like a later on in the episode, any social media post that the person ever made, any post made about them, they would kind of condense it all into information and feed it into the clone. And it would learn like the person's mannerisms, it would learn their general behavior, their outlook on life. So it became more and more down the line, like more and more like that person was.
That's a very interesting idea, honestly. I don't think I can have this conversation anymore. It's getting too heavy, man.
You want to tap out?
I'm freaking out, man.
You want to tap out?
I'm freaking out, man.
Alright.
But I think, just one last note. I'm gonna quote Vsauce here. It was the point of, like, the key that unlocks the gates of heaven also opens the doors of hell. It's the point that a V2 rocket is great for, taking men to the moon for the first time. A V2 rocket can launch us into space so we can learn about the universe. But at the same time, a V2 rocket is also great for raining death upon thousands of even millions of people with ICBMs from across the fucking world. So I feel like the advancements we make in this, we also have to take into account the bad that could and likely will, if this is made more available to people, be done with this knowledge, this information, this technology.
So, long story short, technology is a double-edged sword. That's nothing new. Thanks, Vsauce.
I wanted to sound fucking smart and insightful. You piece of shit. Had to go make me sound like a
words you stole
dick
from
while you're
someone.
recording.
Wise words, yeah.
I don't remember who originally said it. It's not my words. I mean,
We know it's not, Brock, but thank you.
Well, disclaimer, guys.
As a wise man once said, E to the MC squared, motherfucker.
E to the MC squared, you square. Ho ho ho.